In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, taking a look at an ongoing snowstorm for the northeastern states, an incoming Arctic blast that is going to be here tonight through the coming days, which is going to onset a major lake effect snow event. We also have more cold air coming up very, very soon throughout the upcoming pattern. And not only that, multiple snow threats as well that we need to discuss. So let's just dive into things and just taking a look at this afternoon's look, 1 p.m. today on Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way. We can see that this GFS model has completely folded to the European model solution. If you've been keeping up with us daily, the European model has been showing something like this as far as where the snowfall is for days, even about a week now, and the GFS model has consistently been putting it further south than this, even as far south as the low being this far south and really nowhere getting snow. So something like this, basically no snow in the northeast. It's completely folded to the European model. What do we do with that information? We're going to continue to look at both models, but we're going to keep in mind that the European model nailed this one and the GFS model completely failed. It's a total F. And the biggest takeaway is that if we have a situation, let's say in a week from now, when we have cold air and another snowstorm on the way perhaps, and the GFS model is placing that storm way to the south and the European model way to the north, we're going to lean towards the European model. That doesn't mean that the GFS model is 100% wrong, but the European model is more likely in that case to be correct. So that's what we do with that information. And it varies month to month, year to year, which model is more accurate. So you have to constantly keep up with the successes and the losses of these models. So we are going to mentally note that together. Let's take a look at what happens this evening. We see that a lot of the snowfall by the time we're looking at 10 p.m. is exclusive for very far eastern upstate New York or New England, like Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine there, where we have very heavy snowfall, although just offshore. It's classic stuff. Heavy snowfall accumulating quickly, and a lot of folks will probably end up with 6, 8, 10 inches of snowfall, especially in higher elevations in there. As we take a look at tomorrow afternoon on Black Friday, November 29th, we can see that there is this really, really classic look. We have this ridge in the west, which we call a positive PNA, and this forces the cold air to move around it and into the east, and we have that pour over look here. Just a classic look, and we're going to see this throughout the model run here. We see that the lake effect snowfall by tomorrow afternoon is already getting going for Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York there. All of these states cashing in on heavy snowfall. This will likely accumulate very quickly because if you're underneath these lake effect bands, they tend to be extremely heavy. Some of the heaviest snowfall in the world can occur within these lake effect snow events. So accumulation's quick, regardless of ground temperature. Pretty much this is not going to melt if it's coming down at, let's say, 1-2 inches per hour. It's game over. It's going to accumulate. As we keep going, we're going to see that just continue. Let's just take a look at Saturday afternoon, and we not only have this lake effect snowfall, we have a couple of pockets of snowfall showers, like here in Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, up here in Michigan and the Dakotas, or Montana and the Dakotas as well. We have snowfall showers occurring within this colder air overall. As we take it towards Sunday afternoon, I mean, Friday, Saturday, Sunday look almost identical. Heavy lake effect snowfall, a major trough in the east, and this is just sitting tight for days here. This positive PNA, as we call it out west, is actually intensifying over time, becoming more prominent, and this will likely continue to slightly impact the trough and actually make it more intense as the days go by. So I suspect, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it's going to be like an escalation. We're going to see actually cooling throughout those days. Although Friday is going to be very, very cold tomorrow, and even starting tonight as a cold front rolls through, we are going to see a drastic switch. I was outside this morning and it actually felt quite nice. So we've seen pretty good conditions today. It's kind of rainy here along the East Coast, but the temperatures are all right. Tonight is when things are really going to take a switch, and when you wake up tomorrow, it's going to be a whole different story than today. Remember, I said that you're going to believe it tomorrow. Monday the 2nd, probably even colder than Sunday the 1st, so still escalating. This positive PNA now surging up into Western Canada. This is kind of a classic vertical look, with this ridge, and you can kind of imagine that what this ridge does is the opposite of what's going to happen in the east. So if we see this ridge expanding northward, expect to see this trough expanding southward to the east here, and we sure enough see that. I mean, really cold temperatures down into the Gulf states and far southeast. This is a classic major early season Arctic invasion basically happening. Still lake effect snowfall. I think this will be like the third, maybe fourth day of lake effect snow. So you can imagine that's going to accumulate greatly. As we keep going towards Tuesday afternoon, December 3rd, we see that this ridge is kind of expanding eastward, which is usually a bad sign that it's actually going to come to an end. We see it kind of intruding to the east. That's step one for a trough ending in the east. Step two would be cold air beginning to impact the west coast. That would be a really big sign that we are going to see this cold air move out. But still, we see this cold air, especially for the east coast, reaching very far southward. We see still South Carolina, North Carolina seeing frigid temperatures. And if you go a little bit north of there, even colder. We continue to see lake effect snowfall as well here on Tuesday the 3rd. As we keep going towards the 4th, what we see happen, while the ridge is still peaked out west, there is some warmer air making its way into the more central areas, but it's still peaked over the west, and I think that's crucial. We don't see cold air intruding the west coast like I mentioned, and we actually see signs that maybe we're going to see Arctic air try to move back in very rapidly. It's unrealistic to expect a trough to just sit in place for 8, 9, 10 days. There will be little breaks in between, and that's what I think the 4th of December here is a little tiny break, because by the time we reach Thursday the 5th, it's clear that we have another major one on the way. And much like its predecessor, we do see heavy lake effect snowfall get going again, a low near the southern Hudson Bay, which has been a classic signal that we have cold air on the way. And we have cold air on the way. So it is a classic signal, and we see it here. We also see some clipper systems, more minor in nature, but we do see them moving down from Canada into the north central states, bringing light to moderate snowfall, quick little blasts of it. I would say expect, 6-8 hours of snowfall, light to moderate pace there, could accumulate to some marginal amounts with these systems coming down from Canada. We also see that we get an overall cold front developing, and we get some snowfall along it as it's ending in some interesting places like the Smoky Mountains here, which I guess isn't that interesting, but my neck of the woods here in southeast Virginia, northeast North Carolina, not impossible. I've seen snowfall, not really accumulating, but in early to mid-December. And these cold fronts, it reminds me of one that we had maybe 2 years ago, but it was in the spring, where we actually saw thunderstorms on the front end of it with like 70s, and then it actually ended as some moderate to heavy snowfall for like an hour or two. And I mean, it's cool to see the flakes, but it's been raining, it's been warmer, not going to see accumulation in that instance. The mountains, on the other hand, out here may see something, but this is still pretty far out. We'll continue to track it. I would say that this cool down is fully in place by Friday the 6th, the second one. And as we can see, Saturday the 7th, it just continues. We see, again, the stacked column of warmth out west. This is going to continue to drive the cold air straight into the eastern states. So that is, again, in place. And right now, you can tell it's not intruding eastward anymore. It's kind of staying out west. So it reverts back to that very classic look. And something interesting around the 7th, 8th time frame is a low is developing right here. The problem is that your jet stream is very horizontal, so this storm is probably going to be driven right out to sea. But if we perhaps saw a little bit more of a vertical look, let's say there's some high pressure offshore, a little bit warmer temperatures, this low could very well try to track a lot closer to the coast, and this is an East Coast threat in that instance, and very far south, to say the least. With this cold in mind, I mean, you're looking at coastal North Carolina through Maine as a potential area to watch if the cold is in fact that deep and the low is down there. So both models have been picking up on a coastal low. Both have not really cashed in on a major snowstorm yet with it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it over the coming day or two we do see a model run or two start to flirt with something. So we'll be watching this right around the Saturday Sunday mark, 7th, 8th. We'll keep that in mind. Here we go, and again, it just moves right offshore, but we continue to see snow showers. We continue to see some lake effect snowfall. You can imagine the lakes are rapidly cooling with this cold air that's been overhead for a majority of the days now, 10 plus days probably. So the lake effect snowfall will become less of a factor over time. This is why we usually see early season lake effect snow events, because the lakes are so warm. But once that cold moves over a couple of times, it really eats away at that lake warmth that we have. And that's when you stop seeing quite as much lake effect snowfall. So this first major one will likely be the most major one that we can see this year for the most part. Doesn't mean it will be completely done. We do get a synoptic storm. Again, what that means is a actual low pressure system and like a storm bringing snowfall, and not just the cold air moving over the warm waters. So we do see a low taking place across the Central Plains, some heavy snowfall to the north of it for the upper Midwest. And what we're seeing is heavy snowfall throughout Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, even the UP of Michigan, and some of the western lower peninsula of Michigan as well. So this could be a big snowmaker outside of the lake effect snowfall. That's Monday. Here's Tuesday, and it kind of lightens up. This low tries to kind of spread very far southward. What we're left with is heavy, again, synoptic snowfall, not necessarily lake effect snow. It could be lake effect enhanced, which is where things get really confusing, which is kind of a combination of the two. We could be seeing some of that going on where there's snowfall abroad and, for the entire area, but those lake bands are a little bit heavier in there because it's enhanced by the lake effect. That could be a factor here. Now we get a little bit of a break here on Tuesday the 10th again, but we really quickly rebound with Arctic air moving back in. And here's Thursday. This is maybe another coastal storm to watch for. It kind of swings around here. Looks quite a bit like our upcoming or our ongoing storm. It's a little further offshore, which GFS model, a little too far southeast maybe, but we do see eastern Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, southern New England cash in on some moderate snowfall at least here. Very far out. You don't want to pay too much attention to the specifics, but seeing this model indicate multiple threats for snowstorms, which it shouldn't come as a surprise. When you have consistently Arctic air for many, many days, it's just kind of a fact of nature that when storms move along, there will be threats of snowfall, and we're seeing that here. We have one more day to look at, Friday the 13th here. And again, it's not quite as Arctic, but we do still see a below normal temperature pattern in these areas. It's just not quite as below average as things were before. So we will see what the temperatures show in a minute. Let's go over the European model real quickly. And as we take a look, we get our ongoing snowstorm here. We have to use the 0Z run because the 12Z run is not out as I'm recording. I have some festivities to attend today, obviously. We see that this cold air sticks around. Lake effect snowfall is intense. We get this synoptic snowstorm also on this model, a couple of clipper systems through the lakes, but cold air kind of continues. And then we also get a very similar storm towards the end of the model run here, just offshore, some southern New England and eastern Pennsylvania action. It's not quite as cold as the GFS model, so we do see more rain impacting these areas, but there is some pockets that deal with a snowstorm. Again, very far out, don't want to pay too much attention to the specifics, but seeing both models indicate this does mean something, and we will continue to track these threats as we go along. Now, the total precipitation, a little lackluster, especially out west where almost everywhere is below average. It shouldn't be too surprising. We have high pressure in place, which is kind of really classic to see with a positive PNA. So high pressure blocking those storms. A couple areas that could be above average would be the lakes into the northeast here, and then perhaps the deeper south here where they really, really need it. So let's see what the anomalies look like. And sure enough, very below average out west, especially the northwest. Above average for the lakes, and above average here in the deeper south. But really, I mean, we've dealt with the dry fall, and now as we're entering into the early winter, meteorological winter starts in 2 days on December 1st. We see below average precipitation for, I would say, 90% of the nation here, maybe 95. So very, very dry, pretty much coast to coast. Crazy stuff, especially for how long it's been going on. Here is the total snowfall. Actually, this is the accumulated snowfall. Let's look at the total snowfall real quickly, and then we'll move into that. But really below average out west. There is still, up to 10 inches, maybe a foot for some of these mountain ranges, but that is not up to par, really. We see from the Midwest through the Great Lakes, the Appalachian Mountain Range, and then up into the Northeast, we see 1-2 feet, and then within the lakes, I mean, we're talking 2, 3, 4, 5 feet, maybe even exceeding that with this major lake effect snow event. So that is the current look. This does include our ongoing snowstorm for the Northeast, so I'm curious to see like tomorrow in tomorrow's video what this snowfall map looks like without that storm. That's going to be good to look at. Crazy numbers here. The European model does agree. It's way less out west. I mean, we are seeing none almost for the Cascades, Sierra Nevada here. And then maybe a few inches up to 10 inches for the Rockies. That is lackluster to say the least. We do see, again, the Midwest, Great Lakes, Appalachian Mountain Range, and Northeast do cash in on quite a bit. Above average in these parts, but far below average in the mountainous West. I mean, this is a slap in the face to these ski resorts. That is not good for them. We do see some further south snowfall occurring, like these areas here, in lighter quantities. So interesting to see some flakes flying, some dustings, maybe an inch or two in some of these areas. Again, we get multiple storms after this ongoing one, so some threats in there. But I think that the potential for these numbers to increase over the 10 to 15 day period after this first storm is done we can only really go up from here, is my opinion. You know, not everywhere in here will see snowfall, but I think that there's going to be more major snowfall over the next 2 weeks than just the storm we're seeing now in the Great Lakes event. So that'll be interesting to watch for. As we take a look at the GFS model's temperature anomalies, we see this cold front move in. Again, this is 7 p.m. tonight, so things are going to be cooling through the day. Right now we have warmer temperatures along the East Coast this morning. As we move towards this evening, it's going to be cooling already. And then when you wake up tomorrow, this is 10 a.m., even further below average temperatures. As we reach the high temperatures, we see the greens move in, which is 10 to 15 degrees below normal. We even start to see some of those kind of purplish blues in there as well by the time we're reaching like the 1st here on Sunday. That is going to be 15 to 25 degrees below normal. And we really stay this way through the 4th, 5th, 6th. Again, here's that brief warm up for the 4th into the 5th, followed by another major Arctic intrusion that lasts for days. We get another one after that, a brief little tiny warm up that tries to move in right before we get more Arctic air once more. So really no break between now and the midway point of December is the current outlook from these models. As we take a look at the European model, cold in the west, warm in the east for a moment, and then it's just like boom, Arctic blast is here again. Last days on this model too, brief warm up, major Arctic intrusion. We get a little bit more warm air working its way in on this European model before cold air moves back in, but still we're looking at maybe 2-3 days of warmth max, and then I would say probably 12 to 13 days of below normal temperatures here over the next 15 days, according to both of these models, which is major. That is absolutely crazy consistency. Little tiny breaks in between these long-term cooldowns and quite major as well. This is just crazy, crazy stuff. Anyway, we upload every single day. Again, I think we're at kind of a crossroads here. I think we are going to see more major stuff popping up here over the coming days. I would not be surprised at all. So be sure to subscribe. We upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.